Just imagine, an ordinary prison yard, inmates are walking around, the guards are relaxed. And suddenly, a helicopter appears from the sky. But the craziest part is that at the controls is not a professional pilot, but a person who has never flown this type of transport before. This happened in one of the European prisons. The inmate had planned the escape in advance and convinced his girlfriend to rent a helicopter under the pretext of filming landscapes. But as soon as the pilot lifted the machine into the air, the girl pulled out a weapon and forced him to direct the helicopter straight to the prison yard. They were already waiting on the ground. The convict, along with his accomplices, was ready to make a dash. As soon as the machine hovered over the fence, he grabbed onto the rope and soared into the air. At first, the guards thought it was some kind of drill, but by the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. The escape was successful. The fugitive disappeared. But the most interesting part is that the pilot survived. He was released immediately after the escape, and the criminal managed to stay free for several months before being found. But the very fact that he flew out of prison in a helicopter. It's one of the most cinematic escapes in history. The fake warden. Imagine an ordinary day in prison. Cells open, guards walk down the corridor, checking on the inmates. One of them is new. No one pays attention. But there's one problem. This guard is actually a prisoner. This story took place in one of the American prisons. The convict somehow obtained a warden's uniform. Maybe he bribed someone. Maybe he stole it. The exact method was never revealed. The main thing is, he looked like a real guard. He just waited for the right moment, walked out of his cell, confidently strode down the corridor, nodded to the other wardens, and headed for the exit. No one even asked him for documents. The cherry on top, he said goodbye to his colleagues before leaving. "See you tomorrow, guys," he said and calmly crossed the guarded perimeter. It was a brilliant escape. No one chased after him. There were no gunshots, no alarms. He just walked away. He was found later, but the fact remains. He literally strolled out of prison as if it were just another workday. Escape through forged documents. Imagine you're sitting in a maximum security prison. Guards everywhere. High walls, surveillance cameras. No chance of getting out. Unless, of course, you have an official release order in your hands. This criminal wasn't just cunning, he was a true master of deception. He managed to forge official release documents. Moreover, he did it so professionally that even the prison administration didn't suspect anything unusual. The document was handed to the guards as if it had been sent from the court. And the most interesting part is, it all worked. The guards simply opened the doors and let the prisoner out. He walked right out through the main entrance. No escape, no chase, no helicopters or tunnels. Just an official release that was never supposed to happen. Later, the prison realized they had been thoroughly deceived, but by then the escapee was long gone. This is one of the smartest escapes in history. An escape from the 16th floor. When we talk about prison escapes, we imagine tunnels, cut bars, or even hijack helicopters. But this escape is completely unique. The prisoner got out through a window over 50 feet high. This happened in one of the multi-story prisons. The cell was on the 16th floor, with no stairs, no exit. The guards were sure it was impossible to escape from there. But the convict found a way. He started collecting sheets. Every day he tied one to another, carefully making knots. For weeks, he prepared for the escape. And on one of the nights, when the guards were distracted, he climbed out the window. Imagine the 16th floor. Night, the city below. The slightest mistake, and he would fall. But he still made it down. Slowly, carefully, step by step. When he reached the ground, his heart was probably pounding like crazy. He ran. In the morning, the prison was in shock. The prisoner had simply vanished. Later, he was caught, but the escape itself went down in history. It was one of the boldest and most desperate moves imaginable. Escape through a package. Sometimes the craziest ideas turn out to be the most brilliant. This escape is one of those cases. An ordinary day. The postal service picks up packages from the prison. Nothing unusual. A few boxes with documents, belongings, papers. Except in one of the boxes lies a living person. The prisoner had previously arranged with accomplices to have a large cardboard box brought into the cell. Inside, he made an air hole and packed water and food. At the right moment, he climbed inside. An accomplice sealed the box, placed it among others, and left it near the exit. When the postal workers arrived, they simply loaded it into the truck and drove away. The guards did not check the contents. They thought, who would think of hiding in a box? But they were wrong. When the truck left the prison, the escapee simply got out and disappeared. He was caught later, but the fact remains, he literally left the prison by mail. This is one of the most unconventional escapes in history. Escape from Alcatraz. Alcatraz is a prison surrounded by legends. The most impregnable place of its time. An island surrounded by icy water and strong currents. Escaping from there is impossible, but 3 inmates still attempted it. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers didn't just decide to escape. They prepared perfectly. For months, they chipped away at the concrete walls of their cell using spoons, forks, and homemade tools. They hid the hole behind the ventilation grates. But just getting out of the cell wasn't enough. They made papier-mâché dummies, painted faces on them, and placed them in their beds. The guards suspected nothing. After escaping from their cells, the fugitives navigated through service corridors, climbed onto the roof, and descended to the water. There, a homemade raft made from raincoats awaited them. They set sail into the ocean and disappeared. No one knows what happened to them. Officially, they are considered drowned, but their bodies were never found. Many believe they managed to escape. This is one of the most mysterious escapes in history. Many think that digging a tunnel is long and difficult. This escape proves the opposite. A group of prisoners spent several months digging an underground passage right beneath the prison yard. They used ordinary spoons, forks, and sometimes even their hands. They hid the dirt in their pants and discreetly disposed of it during walks. At one point, the tunnel was ready. It led outside the prison grounds. On the chosen night, the convicts simply climbed into the hole, crawled several dozen feet, and found themselves free. By the time the guards discovered the escape, it was already too late. But the funniest part is, the prison dogs caught the scent of the dug-up earth, but the guards decided it was rats. Later, the escapees were caught, but their persistence is impressive. This is one of the most classic escapes, a homemade ladder. It would seem that if a prison is surrounded by 20-foot-high walls, escape is impossible, but not for these guys. The inmates came up with a simple yet ingenious plan. They started collecting sheets, not tying them in knots, but making something like a rope out of them. The guards didn't pay attention to the sheets because everyone had them. On the chosen night, they reached the wall, threw the rope over, climbed up, and were almost free. But then a problem arose. Falling down was too risky. So they made an improvised rope descent. One of them wrapped himself with a sheet and carefully slid down. The guards didn't even realize what was happening. The escape was successful, but not for long. One was caught the next day, the other 2 days later. But the very fact is, they climbed over the impregnable walls using ordinary sheets. A hole in the wall. This escape sounds like a movie plot. The prisoner discovered that the wall of his cell had a weak spot. It was old, the concrete had started to crumble, and he decided to take advantage of this opportunity. Every night he quietly chipped away pieces of the wall. Millimeter by millimeter, he used a spoon, a toothbrush, even his nails. He disguised the hole with a poster. After a few months, the passage was ready. He crawled through the narrow tunnel, made his way into the ventilation system, and climbed out through the pipes. By the time the guards discovered his disappearance, it was already too late. The fugitive wasn't found for several years. But the escape itself became legendary. He literally dug his way to freedom using only his hands. Keys made of soap. Homemade keys. Sounds crazy, but this prisoner pulled off exactly such a trick. He managed to secretly make an impression of a key using soft soap. Then he passed it to his accomplices on the outside. They made a metal copy and somehow got it back into the prison. All that was left was to wait for the right moment. On the right night, he carefully inserted the key into the lock and it worked. The cell door opened. He went through several doors, opened the bars, and simply walked out. The guards didn't even realize how it happened. Later he was caught, but the fact remains, he made a key out of soap and then escaped. It's one of the most ingenious escapes in history. Escape in a woman's dress. You won't believe it, but this prisoner got out of prison by dressing up as a woman. And this is no joke. He prepared the clothes in advance. A long dress, a wig, a bit of makeup. All of this was passed to him by accomplices, hidden in a package. On the designated day, he changed right in his cell. Then, waiting for the walk, he calmly walked out of the building, trying not to attract attention. What's most interesting is that the guards didn't even look at him. Did they see a woman leaving the prison? Did they think it might be an escapee? No. He simply walked through the main entrance, got into a car, and disappeared. By the time the guards realized one inmate was missing, it was already too late. This escape proved that sometimes you don't need force or weapons. All you need is cunning and a good disguise. Escape with the help of a twin. When you have a twin brother, your chances of escaping increase dramatically. This criminal used his kinship to the fullest. His brother was a law-abiding citizen. He came for a visit to see his relative. But they had a secret plan. At some point, they swapped clothes. The prisoner changed into civilian clothes, and his brother into the prison uniform. After that, the convict calmly walked out through the main entrance. The guards didn't even realize what had happened. They thought they were letting out a visitor. The real brother stayed in the cell. Of course, the guards quickly figured it out, but the escapee was already long gone. This escape proved that sometimes genes can be the best weapon. Barrels on the river. If a prison is located near water, it's a great opportunity for an escape. That's exactly what these prisoners thought. They started collecting barrels. Each barrel is a floating element. Gradually, they constructed something like a boat. At night, when the guards were distracted, they dropped the structure into the river, jumped into the water, and floated downstream. What's most interesting is that the prison didn't even realize what had happened. In the morning, the cells were empty, but there were no signs of an escape. Later, the escapees were caught, but the fact remains that they literally floated away on barrels. A simple, but ingenious solution. An escape by air. This escape would have been impossible without engineering genius. The convict built a homemade glider. He spent a long time gathering parts, pieces of fabric, wire, wooden slats, anything that could help create a flying machine. At night, he worked on his machine unnoticed. No one suspected that right in the prison cell, a means of escape was being built. On the chosen night, he climbed onto the roof, ran, jumped, and flew. The guards saw a strange silhouette in the sky but couldn't do anything. The escapee vanished into the darkness. Later, he was found, but the escape itself became a legend. He was the first person to escape from prison by air, exposed at the last moment. This escape was perfectly planned. Everything was going according to plan, but at the very last moment, everything fell apart. The prisoner had prepared fake documents in advance. He convinced the guards that he was being released. He was already standing at the gates, already feeling freedom. One more step, and he would be free. But then chance intervened. The real release list was with another guard. And when they compared the data, they realized they had an imposter in front of them. Instead of freedom, he got a few more years added to his sentence. This escape shows that sometimes even the smartest plan can fail because of one small detail. An escape that became a legend. Some escapes are so well thought out that they seem like a movie script. But this case is not fiction. This is a real story of a brilliant escape in history. The prisoner prepared for years. He didn't just look for weak spots, he created them himself. He bribed the guards, found accomplices, studied the internal security system. On the decisive day, he activated a false alarm, which caused the surveillance cameras to turn off. Then, dressed in a guard's uniform, he passed through several checkpoints and reached the exit. He was so confident that he even said goodbye to the duty officer. "See you tomorrow." By the time the guards realized what had happened, it was already too late. This man disappeared. He was searched for all over the world, but they never found him. This escape became a legend. He proved that the most dangerous weapon is intelligence. The prison of the future. Now forget about escapes. In the modern world, prisons are becoming so secure that escaping from them is unreal. Imagine a place with no bars and no guards. Only technology. Doors open and close automatically, movements are monitored by sensors, and each prisoner is watched by artificial intelligence. There's no chance to hide a spoon to dig a tunnel. Cameras see everything. Electronic bracelets track every movement. There is no way out, only sterile white walls, total control, and the complete impossibility of deceiving the system in any way. Welcome to the prison of the future, a place from which no one will ever escape. Artificial intelligence on guard. If in the past the guards could make mistakes, now machines handle this. And they do not make mistakes. Modern prisons are already testing patrol robots. They move through the corridors, scan faces, and analyze the behavior of prisoners. If someone behaves suspiciously, the system instantly triggers an alarm. But the most frightening thing is the artificial intelligence that analyzes even thoughts. It tracks behavior patterns and can predict if a prisoner is planning an escape. And if the system decides that someone is dangerous, they will be transferred to solitary confinement even before they make the first attempt to escape. Escape under such conditions is almost impossible. The most secure prison in the world. Where is the most impregnable prison on the planet located? The answer is simple. It's the ADX Florence prison in the USA. The most dangerous criminals are held here. And throughout its history, there has not been a single escape. How is that? It's all about the security system. Inmates are in solitary confinement 23 hours a day. Doors open only by electronic signal. The cells are designed so that inmates cannot see the corridors or other inmates. They are completely isolated. And now the most important thing, this prison is designed so that even if someone breaks out of a cell, there is nowhere to run. The walls are designed to lead only to dead ends. It's a real concrete maze from which there hasn't been a single successful escape. Underground prisons. You think walls are secure? Well, modern prisons have gone even further. Some of them are actually located underground. Imagine a complex that is completely hidden from the world. No windows, no doors. The only way is an armored elevator controlled by a security system. Escaping from such a place is physically impossible. Even if you manage to get out of the cell, you'll find yourself in concrete tunnels with no exit. No air, no food, no chance. These prisons are the scariest in the world because they are built not just to contain criminals. They are built so that no one ever leaves. Why don't they dig tunnels anymore? Digging tunnels used to be almost a classic escape method, but today it's no longer possible. Why? Firstly, new prisons are built taking into account old mistakes. The floors are no longer concrete but multi-layered with pressure sensors. If ground movement starts anywhere, the guards know about it immediately. Secondly, the entire prison area is now scanned with underground radars. Even if someone starts digging, they will be detected within minutes. Thirdly, new technologies allow walls and floors to be reinforced so that no tool can break through them. Escapees can no longer dig tunnels. They have only one option left, to sit and wait. History knows thousands of escapes. Ingenious, daring, and saying, but the world is changing. Today, an escape is no longer about spoons and sheets, but high technology, artificial intelligence, sensors, autonomous systems, and perhaps, in the future, there will be no legendary escapes at all. Because escaping will simply be impossible. But, who knows? Human cunning knows no bounds. Perhaps someday we will hear about an escape that surpasses everything that came before. For now, we can only admire those who manage to outsmart the most secure prisons in the world.